want to start a conversation on civic engagement through the lens of systemic change, and focusing on really one issue in particular, the foster care and adoption crisis in Virginia, and looking at how we engage that community to make sustainable systemic change. So a little bit about me. I'm an attorney, and I served as a guardian ad litem for about 7 years, representing the interests of children in court. All of that led me to my current role as a policy and research analyst for Children's Home Society of Virginia. So I work on issues with foster care, adoption, and youth aging out of foster care. So civic engagement. I think I could ask this room how many of you are engaged in civic engagement activities in your community, but I know you would all raise your hands because you're here. So serving on a nonprofit board, volunteering with survivors of domestic and sexual violence, empowering women in your community. I think we can all agree that that is civic engagement. But I want to challenge it a little bit because it's really just one aspect of civic engagement. True civic engagement in the context of systemic change has to go much further and much deeper. Holistically engaging a community has to be more than siloed volunteer activities. We have to understand the community we're seeking to engage. We have to understand their needs. And how do we do this? We do it by listening to the community, right? Really listening to them. So how does this work with the foster care and adoption crisis in Virginia? So I'll pause briefly to talk a little bit about that. So in Virginia, for those of you that are not familiar, when a child is abused or neglected, they often enter the foster care system, meaning they live temporarily with a family, sometimes multiple families, sometimes in a group home, until they're either reunited with their family or adopted. But sometimes this never happens. Sometimes youth are never reunited with their family. They're never adopted, meaning they turn 18 and have to navigate adulthood with no family supports. And we know through research that youth who age out of foster care are far more likely to become incarcerated, to become homeless, to face a multitude of harsh life outcomes. And we know from talking with the youth that they need a support system to become independent, to navigate adulthood. But Virginia's in the midst of a crisis with this. We don't have enough foster parents, and we don't have enough adoptive parents. Virginia has the second highest rate of youth aging out of foster care in the entire country. So when you think about foster care and engaging in foster care and giving back, you might think about donating clothes or mentoring children or tutoring children, and we need all of that, absolutely need all of that. But if we're gonna make systemic change, we need much more, and we know that because we've engaged the community. So how do we really actually engage a community to learn what the needs are? There are a variety of ways, but I can share what I do in my role as an advocate. First, I have to identify who is the community that I need to engage. So in this case, it obviously includes youth in foster care and youth who have aged out of foster care, but it also includes the social workers who work with the youth. It includes the families who foster and adopt the youth. It includes the change makers, the policy makers, the community leaders. And then I listen. So I hold meetings just for the only purpose is to listen to the youth and the families, to hear their stories, their experiences, to hear their needs and what's most important to them. I regularly attend programmatic meetings to hear what the social workers are working through, to hear their frustrations and their concerns. I work with other advocates to make sure that we're all sharing what we're hearing, and we take all of that to create an advocacy agenda for systemic change. It's my job to take all of those stories and experiences and perspectives and needs and convey that to the people who can make the systemic change, the policymakers and the community leaders. So how does all of this work together? Systemic change, the foster care crisis, civic engagement. When we've engaged our community, we've learned that one of the overarching needs is permanency, a permanent support system. So we create an advocacy agenda that is rooted in permanency, rooted in the need identified by the community itself. But then we also take that one step further, and we engage the broader community to become a part of filling that need, to become a part of that change, to be the permanent support systems, to become the adoptive parents. So what have we done? We've engaged the community, we've listened to the needs. We've taken those needs and advocated for change rooted in those needs, and then we've engaged the broader community to be a part of fulfilling that need. Creating systemic change is a cycle that starts and ends with the community. We have to engage the community at every step of the way. So while I would love to walk away from here having inspired all of you to become adoptive parents and engaged in the foster care issues, just as importantly, I hope that this has ignited in you the desire to think a little bit differently about how you're engaging your community at a deeper, more holistic level.